This conference will now be recorded.
So injuries to female genital tract are mostly the obstetric injuries. Obstetric injuries are during parturition, like process of delivery, or during the intrapartum period. Most injuries of the female genital tract occur during childbirth. Therefore, most common female genital tract injuries are due to obstetric causes, that is during the intrapartum period. So what are the common risk factors which predispose to the perineal for injuries during intrapartum? That is overstretching of the perineum due to big baby, like macrosomic baby. The perineum is overstretched, that will lead to perineal tears. And prolonged labor and dystocia may cause perineal tears. Prolonged labor due to malrotation or non-rotation may lead to dystocia, which will lead to perineal tears. And occipito-posterior malposition, which will lead to face to pubis delivery, where larger diameters come out through the pelvic outlet, which cause perineal tears. And vaginal instrumental delivery, as it is already instrumental delivery almost causes the soft tissue injuries. Therefore, it is there is more risk of perineal tears. And after coming head in breech delivery due to manipulative methods like Burn Marshall's or Mauritius Millward technique. All these techniques, we need more space for the manipulations. Therefore, there is increased chance of perineal tears. And more commonly, midline episiotomies. Midline episiotomies have a have tendency to extend into the anal sphincters. So overstretching of perineum is one of the cause, and rapid stretching of perineum is the second cause. Why rapid stretching? Due to precipitate labor. Precipitate labor, there is no time given for the pelvic muscles to accommodate themselves for the intrapartum period. Therefore, in precipitate labor, there is rapid stretching of perineum, which leads to perineal tears, and breech presentation due to aftercoming head. And in case of rigid perineums, when the perineal muscles or perineum is rigid, it is inelastic and it is not stretchable. Therefore, it leads to perineal tears. Like in case elderly primigravida, is scarred perineum due to previous surgeries, repaired previous complete perineal tears, and vulval edema. So coming to the classification of perineal lacerations, they are classified into four degrees: first degree, second degree, third and fourth degrees. You can see here in the picture, this is the first degree. In the first degree, only vaginal mucosa foci are involved, and along with the perineal skin. The second degree, vaginal mucosa, the perineal skin and the perineal muscles are involved, but anal sphincter is not involved. In third degree, the external anal sphincter is involved, and external and a part of internal anal sphincter is involved. In complete perineal tear or fourth degree, you can see here even the rectal mucosa is involved. So we classify perineal tears into 4 degrees: first, second, third and fourth. Fourth degree is also called as complete perineal tear. So first degree lacerations usually involve, if you can see here in the figure, vaginal mucosa foci and the skin, a small bit of perineal skin. So how you will manage this first degree tears? If the skin is not involved and if the vaginal mucosa is involved without any active bleeding, just leave it. If it is small vaginal mucosal tear without any active bleeding and the skin is not involved, just keep pressure, and if there is no active bleeding, just leave it. It heals by itself. Therefore, small perineal tears need not be repaired. If the skin is also involved, then you can go for an interrupted sutures. So coming to second degree laceration, you can see here second degree lacerations involve vaginal mucosa, skin of the perineum and muscles of perineal body, that is bulbospongiosus and transverse perineum muscles. So these should be repaired immediately after delivery. Otherwise, repair will be difficult if we repair it later. Patient should be placed in a lithotomy position under local anesthesia or regional pudendal block. You can go for sutured layer technique, like torn muscles of first vaginal mucosa. The apex is identified and a bite is taken, and the vaginal mucosa is sutured, followed by perineal muscles, followed by skin, perineal skin. So after that, good perineal care should be taken care of. It should be well cleaned with betadine after micturition and defecation, and antibiotics if required. If you need that the wound is soiled, then only you put her on antibiotics, otherwise they are not required. So third degree laceration. It involves vaginal mucosa, perineal muscles, skin, and even the sphincter. You can see here the sphincter is also torn. So how you'll manage this case? It is managed similar to the complete perineal tear, which I will discuss later. This is complete laceration where an rectal mucosa is also involved along with the anal sphincter. So this complete perineal tear should be repaired immediately after delivery. Otherwise, patient will end up in incontinence of feces and flatus. So under good light, in patient putting on a lithotomy position and good assistance under anesthesia, you have to do this procedure. The surrounding skin is first cleaned because the rectum is opened up and it gets soiled with the feces material. So the surrounding area should be completely clean and draped, and the operation area is isolated with sterile towels. Sterile pad is placed in the vagina so that bleeding doesn't obscure your suturing technique. And first, the rectum and the anal sphincter are repaired with 3-0 Vicryl sutures. See, you can put this Lambert sutures. If you can see here, the edges will get inverted so that the mucosa will get inverted. The rectal mucosa will get inverted into the rectal side. So few Lambert sutures are then introduced. Either continuous or intermittent Lambert sutures can be taken with Vicryl 3-0. After that, the anal sphincter is identified. You can see here in the picture. This is anal sphincter, the last one. You have to identify this, catch hold of the anal sphincter with 2 Alice and bring them together. Either you can repair the anal sphincter by end-to-end anastomosis or overlapping technique. End-to-end anastomosis is you have to bring both the anal sphincter end-to-end and you will take the sutures. This overlapping technique, both the ends of the anal sphincter are overlapped and sutured. So after that, muscles after rectal mucosa, anal sphincter, and after that muscles of perineal body are sutured. Later, vaginal wall and skin of the perineum are repaired. If sutures are too tight, there may be complications like edema of the perineum, which lead to severe pain, and stitches will cut through, leading to again incontinence of feces and flatus. The primary union of vagina or perineal skin doesn't happen. Please take care. Ask the patient to go for sitz bath for proper healing. So what care you will give after repairing this complete perineal tear? You should give laxatives, or you should ask the patient to go for soft diet, and systemic antibiotics are prescribed for complete perineal tear. So what aftercare you will give for the patient after repair? General perineal care, you should advise her to keep the perineum clean and aseptic, sitz bath, analgesics as frequently as required, and soft diet in case of 3rd and 4th degree perineal tears, and encouragement of bowel movements with mild laxatives. If the patient doesn't move her bowels, then you can give mild laxatives, or a suppository can be kept, or or enema can be given on 5th or 6th day if she doesn't pass flatus or stools. Otherwise, if she normally passes flatus or stools, no need for laxatives or suppository. So coming to vaginal tears, you can see isolated vaginal tears or laceration most commonly due to instrumental or manipulative vaginal deliveries after coming head of breech or any difficult second stage of labor you will put an instrument like forceps or ventouse, then you can see isolated vaginal tears without any perineal skin involvement. That is very rare. So this should be repaired immediately after delivery to prevent blood loss, because vaginal mucosa in pregnant state is very vascular and so many varicosities can be seen in the vagina. Therefore, even a small tear, if it is actively bleeding, should be sutured or should be repaired immediately after the delivery. Otherwise, patient will end up in PPH, traumatic PPH. Sometimes small tears cannot be repeatedly sutured, so that therefore you will pack the vagina with sterile roller gauze soaked in acreflavin to provide local compression and vasoconstriction. And this pack, you should remember, it should be removed after 24 hours. Otherwise, again it will lead to sepsis, infection and sepsis. So if there are cervical tears in precipitate labor or prolonged labor or any dystocia, cervical dystocia, there may be you can see these cervical tears. The causes are instrumental vaginal deliveries, shoulder dystocia, manipulations during vaginal breech deliveries. So you can see cervical tears. So how you will manage cervical tears? First, you have to identify the lips of the cervix and you have to catch hold of the lips of the cervix with ring forceps. You can see in this figure, you have to catch hold of the lip of the cervix with the ring forceps and you have to check for the bleeding point or the cervical tears. After identifying the cervical tear, take a suture and start from the apex. Apex is here. Because apex will bleed more, if you catch hold of the apex, automatically the bleeding will come less. From apex to the base, you have to take sutures continuously. So you have to suspect genital tract traumas in case of profuse vaginal bleeding, even though the uterus is contracted. So when the women, if you see after delivery, if you see profuse vaginal bleeding, and if on perabdominal examination, if the uterus is well contracted, and if it is not atonic, then surely you have to suspect a traumatic PPH and you have to explore the cervix for any cervical tears or vaginal tears or any pelvic hematomas or broad ligament hematomas which are not usually seen outside. So you have to go for a speculum examination and cervix should be inspected between ring forceps to identify any cervical tear and it should be repaired as I said earlier. Colporexis is the rupture of vaginal vault. Vaginal vault is the part of the vagina which gets attached to the cervical portion of the uterus. If that part gets ruptured, then it is called as colporexis. So there may be concomitant tear of cervix too. So you need a long vaginal retractors to actually see the vaginal vault and the cervical tear which is so extensively extended up to the vault. This extensive injury may lead to formation of, even it may go into broad ligament and lead to broad ligament hematoma, which may require laparotomy in case of active bleeding and unstable patient. So after identifying the vaginal vault rupture, you have to suture the rent and you have to take utmost care because at the vaginal vault, according to anatomy, the uterine artery and the ureters are very close to the vaginal wall. Therefore, you have to take care that you are not injuring the uterine vessels and the ureter during the repair. So hematoma, we have already talked about perineal tears, 4 degrees of perineal tears and colporexis, cervical tears and vaginal isolated vaginal tears. Now coming to hematomas. Vulval hematoma. Exteriorly, you can see a vulval hematoma. The causes may be direct trauma like straddle injury or while cycling or fall on a pointed objects. Accidents such as falling astride gates and chairs are frequent and usually produce bruising of the labia majora. Compressible hematomas of the vulva are sometimes caused by the rupture of varicose veins of labia majora during pregnancy. I've already said pregnancy is a state where there is increased vascularity to the genitalia and there may be varicose veins which can get ruptured and the labia and there may be compressible hematomas in the labia majora during pregnancy. This is one picture of Vulval hematoma due to accident, direct trauma on vulva. Vulvovaginal hematoma, it also involves, not only involves vulva, it also involves vagina. This is due to inadequate hemostasis during the suturing of episiotomy or perineal. When you suture, when you repair an episiotomy, you have to take utmost care of maintaining the hemostasis. You have to secure the hemostasis. Any bleeding blood vessel should be tied separately, and then only you should proceed with the complete suturing of muscles, perineal muscles and skin. Otherwise, you may end up in vulvovaginal hematomas, which may cause infections and which may cause suture breaking of the sutures. So, vulvovaginal hematoma clinical features are like painful tender swellings, which is bluish black in appearance. The patient may look pale according to the loss of blood, and she may be in a condition of shock. If the blood loss is more, she may end up in shock. It is out of proportion to the clinical blood loss. So how you'll manage hematomas? Small hematomas which are not increasing in size, you have to just check the size of the small hematomas. If they are not increasing and if they are not increasing, just put her on antibiotics, because hematomas or blood is an active culture medium for infection. Therefore, put her on antibiotic coverage and don't touch it. Big hematomas and those that are enlarging will definitely require surgical therapy. So the wound should be opened and the hematoma should be evacuated. The blood clots, all the blood clots or the retained blood should be evacuated, and the bleeding point should be identified and ligated. If there is a huge raw surface, the area is packed with sterile gauze and a counter pack is placed in the vagina. This is left for 24 hours to 48 hours. Antibiotic should be given and indwelling catheter should be placed because it is very painful. Therefore, patient may complain retention of urine. So after vulval and vulvovaginal hematomas, coming to pelvic hematomas. There are two types of pelvic hematomas, infralevator and supralevator. Infralevator hematomas, they usually follow perineal tear or episiotomy. They are below the levator ani muscle. Supralevator hematomas results in broad ligament hematomas. The hematomas which actually involve the broad ligament areas or which are extending to broad ligament, they go to supralevator. This is infralevator hematoma. This is levator ani muscle and this is supralevator hematoma. So if it is small, the diagnosis may be delayed because hematomas usually the blood loss is not visible. Therefore, the diagnosis will be delayed in hematomas. A large hematoma usually causes hypotension and tachycardia due to large amount of blood loss. A tender swelling may be felt on one side of uterus in the broad ligament. If patient is unstable or if patient goes into hypotension and tachycardia, and if you suspect a broad ligament hematoma and you do a pelvic examination, the uterus is deviated to one side and large huge swelling you can feel on the fornix, broad ligament area. So how you will manage? Small hematomas, as usually we go with a conservative management, because small hematomas gradually they will absorb, but you have to put her on antibiotics because blood is a good culture medium for bacteria. And larger hematomas, they usually need laparotomy, especially supralevator hematomas. The bleeder cannot be identified in the usual the broad ligament hematomas, as I've said, the supralevator type. It should be packed for 24 hours and the gauze should be the end of the gauze should be kept outside the laparotomy suture. Sorry, laparotomy wound, abdominal wound. So after laparotomy, if you can feel the bleeding vessel, you just ligate it. If you can't see the bleeding vessel, the raw surface or raw area after evacuating the blood clots is packed for 24 hours and the end of the pack should brought out of the abdominal wound so that it can be removed later. And according to general condition of the women, if she is pale, if she is in hypotension, if she needs blood transfusion, it should be given and she should get antibiotics. In case of uterine rupture, you will go for a hysterectomy, or if it is a repairable uterine rupture, you go for a uterine repair, laparotomy and uterine repair accordingly. An internal artery ligation, you can try an internal artery ligation to control the bleeding if you can't see the bleeding vessel in the broad ligament, or embolization of the internal iliac artery. So coming to mutilation, what is mutilation? Mutilation is partial or total removal of external genital organs for non-medical reasons. Just underline the non-medical reasons. So we are not removing the external genital organs for medical reasons. For medical reasons, that comes in another criteria. Mutilation is partial or total removal of external genital organs for non-medical reasons. It involves 4 types. Type 1 is partial or total removal of clitoris and prepuce. Type 2, clitoris is removed along with labia minora. Type 3, cutting and opposing the labia minora so that the vaginal orifice is closed. Type 4 is pricking or piercing, incision and cauterization of the external genitalia. So there are 4 types of mutilation. Mutilation is partial or total removal of external genitalia for non-medical reasons. Type 1 is partial or total removal of clitoris and prepuce. Type 2, clitoris with labia minora. Type 3, opposing labia minora. Type 4, pricking, piercing, incision and cauterization of external genitalia. So what are the immediate complications you can see in a mutilated cases? Usually bleeding, which may lead into hematoma, pain as usual, and infection will follow. Long-term adverse effects are severe persistent pain due to unprotected nerve endings, because these are very sensitive areas. This clitoris, prepuce, thing is sensitive areas. If they are mutilated, the unprotected nerve endings are exposed, which cause severe persistent pain. The second one is dyspareunia and apereunia, hematoma with forceful intercourse, and infection with scar tissues, transmission of HIV and tetanus, retention of urine or hematocolpos. Because due to formation of hematocolpos, it will increase the length of the urethra and cause urethral obstruction, difficult childbirth and need for cesarean delivery, and psychological trauma of mutilation and distorted anatomy of the external genitalia. So other one is chemical and burns. Most common cause of burns or chemical injuries is use of strong chemicals and strong chemicals in the process of abortion. This is actually like not medically, not MTPs. When criminal abortions, usually they will use these chemicals for as abortifacients. Therefore, it causes burns or chemical injuries of the vagina and vulva. Even douching at high temperatures can cause burns. And cervical cauterization by cautery or diathermy cause burns in vagina directly or by conduction. Laser therapy of cervical lesions and vaginal cancer in situ may cause burn injuries. And radium, which is inserted in vaginal or CA cancer cervix, causes radiation burns. So what are the complications of these burn injuries? They lead to scar tissue, fibrosis, vaginal adhesions. Due to vaginal adhesions or fibrosis or cervical atresia or scar tissues, the menstruating fluid will not flow outside, which will lead into hematometra, and this hematometra may lead to pyometra, that is infected that is infection of hematometra may cause pyometra, and it may lead to coital difficulty due to scar tissues and fibrosis and vaginal adhesion. So how you treat burns? Most vaginal burns will heal with normal conservative expectant treatment. In case of extensive scarring, plastic surgery is required. To maintain the patency of the vagina and the tissue surrounding it, plastic surgery is required. Coming to rupture of uterus. Most commonly, rupture of uterus is seen in multipara with misuse of oxytocics, like in induction of labor, unjudicial use of oxytocin in induction of labor may lead to, in multipara may lead to rupture of uterus, but in primipara it will lead to obstructed labor following a neglected and obstructed delivery. In dehiscence of previous uterine scar is either cesarean section or a myomectomy scar. Rarely a hematometra or pyometra may rupture spontaneously because This pyometra makes the uterine wall very thin and very friable. Therefore, this pyometra or hematometra, after expanding, they may get spontaneously rupture into peritoneal cavity. So this is the picture of uterine rupture. You can see here. Depending upon the extension of the tear, either repair can be done, or if it is irreparable, then we'll go for a hysterectomy after taking a proper consent. Injuries due to foreign bodies or instruments. Foreign bodies in uterus are intrauterine contraceptive devices such as copper T. Even during insertion or during forceful or even removal or insertion, they may lead to uterine perforation. Complications are ulcerations of endometrium, ascending infection with inflammatory TO masses, menorrhagia, and foreign body introduced in order to produce abortions. I've already mentioned not only chemical, even these mechanical methods like foreign bodies are used as abortifacients. What are the complications for retained or unseen foreign bodies in the uterine cavity or genital tract? It may lead to pelvic abscess because foreign body is a nidus for infection. It may lead to pelvic abscess and acute salpingo-oophorytis. This is the picture. If you can see here, the copper T during insertion, it got perforated here in the uterine cavity. You can see here, this is perforated uterus. So you have to go for a laparoscopy or a laparotomy for the repair. Perforation of the uterus may occur even during dilatation and curettage. If you go for a forceful dilatation of the cervix, or if you go for a forceful curettage or extensive curettage, you may end up in, during MTP, you may end up in perforating the uterus because pregnant uterus is so soft. Asherman syndrome. This is Asherman syndrome is the adhesions which makes the uterine cavity adherent, anterior and posterior wall. You can see here Asherman syndrome. The causes are due to vigorous curettage and uterine packing to control hemorrhage, manual removal of placenta, and uterine infection. These are the causes of Asherman syndrome. So cervical injuries. The common cervical injuries due to instruments are when you dilate a cervix with a metal dilator. Forceful dilatation of the cervix with a metal dilator may cause cervical injuries. Precipitate labor and instrumental delivery, as we have already mentioned in obstetric causes. And cervical stenosis following conization or amputation in Fothergill operation for prolapse, and cauterization of cervix for cervical erosion may lead to cervical stenosis, which may end up in again hematometra, pyometra, and infertility. What are the vaginal injuries which are actually caused due to instrument or foreign bodies? Vaginal injuries which are caused due to neglected or forgotten ring pessary. For the prolapse, conservative management or for time being, you can reduce the prolapse and insert a pessary, but you have to remove it every 3 weekly or 3 monthly. Which if you have not removed the pessary, or if you have not changed the pessary, then it may lead into incarceration. The pessary gets incarcerated with the tissues, which lead to vaginal injuries. Any forgotten swabs or tampons which cause foul smelling purulent discharge, vaginal discharge. Contraceptive devices like cervical caps, diaphragms, and condoms, which when retained, if they are not actually used properly, they are retained in the vagina, they may cause purulent discharge and ulceration of vagina. And instrumental damage, again with criminal abortion due to mechanical methods. And elastic boogies or uterine sound, knitting needles may cause perforation of vagina into the either bladder or posterior into rectum or pouch of Douglas and parametrium laterally. Rarely, a needle may break through suturing of episiotomy. During the suturing technique of episiotomy, inadvertently you may go into a needle break into the vaginal mucosa, and a piece may remain in the vagina, which may lead to a foreign body nidus and infection. So how you will manage these type of cases? If the injuries are due to foreign bodies and if they are still retained there, you have to remove the foreign bodies under anesthesia. If infection persists, take a swab and start her on antibiotics. Simple local antiseptic doses are sufficient for after treatment. After treatment means after removal of foreign bodies, you have to advise a simple local antiseptic douches. If vagina is perforated, antibiotics are added. For any foreign body injuries, you have to add antibiotics. If there are signs of peritoneal infection or bowel damage, if patient complains of abdominal pain or high-grade fever, then you have to suspect criminal abortion and laparotomy if needed. If adnexal involvement, which is resistant to antibiotics, again you have to go for a laparotomy and the surgical removal. The pelvic organs are grossly infected, then go for a total abdominal hysterectomy with bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy after taking a consent. So these are the injuries due to foreign bodies. Now coming to injuries due to coitus. Due to coitus, during first sexual intercourse, a slight amount of hemorrhage from the ruptured hymen is normal. But severe hemorrhage, which usually extending to vestibule, if it is controlled with pressure, it is okay. But occasionally it may need suturing. So this is a hymenal injuries during coitus. So bruising of vaginal walls and urethral bruising, honeymoon cystitis, all these are other injuries due to coitus. Vaginal lacerations usually occur during forceful coitus, as in rape, or forceful penetration in postmenopausal women, or in imperforate vaginal septum, and if coitus takes place soon after pelvic surgery. So vaginal laceration usually doesn't happen, but usually due to forceful cases like in rape or postmenopausal women, or imperforate vaginal septum, and soon after pelvic surgeries, usually we see a vaginal laceration. Therefore, one should advise to avoid coitus for 2 months after pelvic surgeries. How you will treat these? For small injuries, just pressure and plugging of the vagina after thorough inspection of for any bleeding points or any external or internal injuries. And in severe cases, you go for a suturing of the laceration under anesthesia. In case of bowel damage, in case of any peritoneal damage, go for laparotomy. How you manage an old standing complete tear? We've already talked about complete tears, which should be managed immediately after delivery because they may lead to incontinence of feces and flatus. But if they are not properly repaired at that time, then they will lead to old standing complete perineal tears, mostly due to improper suturing of complete perineal tears. The rectal wall and anal canal are involved. So how they are seen? You can see here. See, usually rectum may be torn as high as 5 centimeters or more along the posterior vaginal wall. Characteristic appearance is red glistening mucous membrane of the anal canal. It usually pouts out. See here, this is complete perineal tear. This is rectal mucosa. Usually this pinkish mucosa will pouts out into the vagina. Rectum protrudes and fuse directly with the vaginal wall without any intervening perineal tissues. Laterally, if you can see here, this is due to anal sphincter. When the anal sphincter gets torn off, these lateral areas, you can see a dimpling because the anal sphincters are pulled laterally. Therefore, it appears as a dovetail appearance. So behind the anus are the radial folds in the skin which are corrugated by underlying contracted subcutaneous sphincter. Because the sphincter, when it gets torn off, it is attached to the skin and it is pulled laterally. In this picture, you can see here. This is dovetail appearance. The external anal sphincter is detached and the two ends are torn away, which will lead into a corrugated posterior surface of the anus. And on examination, there is absence of sphincter grip. If you do a rectal examination, the sphincter grip is very rarely associated with uterine collapse due to common levator and this old complete perineal tear, usually patient has a fecal incontinence, but this fecal incontinence is compensated by usually due to incontinence, the women will keep her levator ani muscle so strong. Therefore, uterine prolapse is very rare. Symptoms is incontinence of feces and fetus. Investigations, a gap in the sphincter can be identified by MRI or ultrasound. So complete perineal tear should be surgically repaired if seen immediately, and optimal time is 3 to 6 months after delivery. Pre-op hospitalization for a couple of days before operation. Bowel should be prepared and antibiotics for 3 days, and patient should be kept on soft diet for 2 days, and vaginal douching should be done for the days which he had admitted. So finally, after pre-op, you admit the patient, you advise her vaginal douching with betadine, put her on antibiotics, and bowel should be prepared and 2 days of soft diet. After that, you will post her for a repair. The scarred, since it's an old perineal tear, the scarred and fibrosed skin should be excised and should be made clear. The freshening of the edges should be done. The mucous membrane of the anal canal, the rectum is then mobilized and pulled down. You have to separate it and you have to pull down. After that, it should be freed from the scar tissue. So anal canal mucous membrane, external sphincter, and the levator muscles are. First, the edges of anal canal mucosa is sutured, as I have already said, with the Lambert suture. Finally, the cuts of posterior vaginal wall and skin of the perineum and suture. After the suturing the muscles, and anal sphincter, you have to pull them with 2 alleys, either end to end or overlapping technique you have to follow. After repair of the complete old perineal tear, what care you will give? Good perineal, advisor good perineal care, keep that area aseptic, antibiotics for 1 week, and bowels. Bowel should be like only soft liquid should be given, IV fluids for 2 days followed by oral, and slowly you have to start her on oral diet, and laxatives on 3rd day, Foley's in catheterization for 3 to 4 days. So thank you. Any doubts you can ask me now.